I can understand a lot more about him. Like his, for example, him being generous, being a creator. I can go from effect to cause. These are proofs through the intellect, and there's proofs through revelation. So this is when it comes to, when you want to understand, if you like this kind of topic, this is in philosophy and theology. Okay, it's not for everyone, not everyone likes it. I love this stuff the most. Personally, this is my favorite subject. This is in philosophy and theology, when we talk about the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. This is a good one. Why does the Quran and Islam give men more power over women? Is there wisdom in Allah choosing it to be that way, or is he a misogynist? And yeah, now that we know he exists, Ahsan, now we see, is he a misogynist? You know, so of course Allah is not a misogynist. But this is a really good question. And it's coming from a place where a lot of I don't know if a sister asked that question. Usually it's sisters that ask that question, because the brothers don't have a problem with it. And the idea is, yes, in the Quran, Allah tells us that the man is qawwam over the woman. Al-rijal qawwamun ala nisa. That the man is responsible in terms of sustaining his wife for a reason. And it doesn't mean that the man is better. It doesn't mean that at all. So the way that the question was asked, notice, why does Allah give men more power over women? Power over women. Obviously, that needs to be understood. What do we mean by power over women? It's not to bully them or be dictator amongst them. It doesn't mean that. Power in terms of there are certain responsibilities and certain rights that a husband has over his wife. And there are some rights that a wife has over her husband, but the rights that the man has over his wife are more powerful, if you want. That's why the question was asked that way. And it's important to understand the whole system of Islam when you want to answer this question. So we're speaking about rights here, first of all. So it's fiqh, so it's the lowest level. And this shouldn't be the level by which people are developing their relationships and trying to run their marriage on. Because if it is, you owe me this and I owe you this, it's not going to be a very good marriage. The man is deemed responsible to take care of his wife and his kids financially, and take care of their security and take care of their shelter. He has to. She doesn't. He doesn't have to do any of that. He has to do that. It's wajib on him. And that's why he receives more inheritance. Because when he receives more inheritance, he's going to use that for his wife and children. Whereas when the daughter receives the inheritance, it's hers. And whatever money your wife makes, it's hers. It's not incumbent on her to share it. If she wants to, that's very nice of her. But it's hers. Whereas your money, it belongs to you, but it's wajib on you to spend it on your wife and on your children. It's wajib as a man. Now, the rights of the man with his wife, however, seem to be more powerful because the woman must follow him. That's why we deem it more powerful. But there is not one greater than the other, because what is it being juxtaposed with? If it's being juxtaposed with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, man is not closer to Allah than woman is. You see, we have to look at what the reality is. Allah doesn't say, man, you're closer to me than woman. He doesn't say that. He says, you have equal opportunity to gain proximity to me. But I give you different roles and different responsibilities. And if this is your role, I want you to fulfill your role, the role I gave you. And I gave the role of the man to be the leader of his family. That's the role I gave him. That's how I created him. And he must lead his wife and his children on his mission. That's why I said he should have a mission if he's going to get married. Otherwise your wife, she's not going to rate you. You're gonna go on her mission. She wants you to lead. She wants you to. Even if she says she doesn't. It's just in biological attraction even. If you ask most women if they like a man that is very withdrawn to himself, has a very high-pitched voice and his hands are like this, tutu, is she attracted? She's not attracted. Why is she attracted? Why not? And likewise, when it comes to a man, when he sees a woman who's walking around with her chest out, her back out, shoulders back, with a deep voice, and she's going around and she's telling everyone what to do and how to be, and she's taking that boss lady archetype on board, you're not very attracted to that. Why not? Why are men not attracted to that? There's a reason. This is beyond Islam, yani. And all the different books, I can recommend a plethora of books that speak about the different psychology of man and different psychology of women. And because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created woman in His image of beauty, and that's why women are way more beautiful than men are. Whereas He created man in the image of majesty. That's why the names of Allah, the majestic names of Allah, you find them more inherent in man. They're supposed to be. Rabb al-Bayt, Al-Hakim, Al-Jabbar, Al-Qawi. Right? When the woman is Al-Qawi in the relationship, when she is the strong one in the relationship, the man becomes a bit more withdrawn, the dynamic shifts. The woman then leads the man, and you can see it in the children. And sometimes you get a man that's not that strong inherently, and his wife is stronger than him. That happens a lot. There's a lot of women that are inherently stronger than a lot of men are. In that relationship, what is desired from them? What's desired is, if they're God conscious, this is why you want to marry someone who fears Allah. The woman understands that he needs a bit more help to take on his leadership role. So instead of taking it from him, she pushes him into that light to be the leader of the family. She helps him. She gives him a bit more space. Or she can bully him and she can take over. And that happens. It happens a lot. She takes over, or she feels like he's not worthy. She loses attraction to him and she takes over. The Quran speaks about the natural order of things. The natural order of things is that man is supposed to have the inherent strength in order to lead his family. The Quran speaks about that. The imam speak about that. That's how it's supposed to be. And if you follow the way in which the Prophet and the way in which the imams dealt with their women, is the most beautiful way to deal with in a relationship, for a man to be with a woman. And likewise, when the Prophet ﷺ was asked, who is the greatest person in the life of a woman in terms of rights? أحق الناس على المرأة في الإسلام, on the woman, the Prophet responded, her husband. Her husband is the ticket to heaven. He made it her husband. And when they asked who is أحق الناس على الرجل, the Prophet said his parents. It wasn't his wife. It was his parents. And usually we're upset by that until you're a woman that has a son. And then you realize, my son is not going to be taken away from me. That doesn't mean that we're going to have a fight between the daughter-in-law and the mother-in-law, or that the mother-in-law is more important. That's not the case. I always advise, for when a man and woman get married, they keep both parents out of it completely. Keep everything private between you two, because it will cause so many problems for your future. You have to put boundaries, and if you want to take on a family, you can't be a mama's boy and do what your mom says in your relationship. You have to be a leader in your relationship. That's what it means being a leader. You can't be led by your mother. But I said, أحق الناس, يعني, you take care of your mom and dad. They don't run you. They don't run you. You run your kingdom, but you take care of them. But if you want to run your kingdom, you can't be listening to what your parents are telling you how to be with your wife and your kids. You took from them, they raised you, you respect them very much, but now you're running your own kingdom and your own household. Now, Allah supports man's position in this equation, whilst giving man every responsibility under the sun to take care of his family and to be a just man. And we can only follow the examples of Imam Ali alayhi salam to see what it means to be a real man and a leader of a family. It doesn't mean being a dictator. It doesn't mean bossing anyone around. You sit down, you converse, how you take care of the kids, the laws of the house, and we look at what her talents are, what your talents are, so you have to have a proper relationship with akhlaq. The fiqh and the ahkam, they come last case scenario. They're there for a reason, but it's last case scenario. You can't be parading those around. But you both understand and you both accept that the man is the leader in this relationship. In Islam we say this, and even outside of Islam, if people want to have a successful relationship, this is how it is. Now we have to define what leader means, and you might have negative connotations because power, but no, a leader is someone who is just, who puts things in the right place, who is wise, puts everything in its rightful place. There has to be a leader in the family. It has to be. There can't be two leaders. There can't be two gods. There has to be one philosophy for the family. So it's either the mother or the father. Islam says the father, as long as it's by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It can't be from his own, whatever he wants to do. Again, injustice. I can give a whole talk on this. Actually, tomorrow we have the brother session, right? Right, we're going to talk about this tomorrow. Right? This is what it means. So tomorrow we'll talk about what it means to be a man in Islam and how to be with our women. It's not that Allah doesn't promote equality, because they're not the same. He promotes equity, as in each one fills the other's gaps. Each one plays its role correctly. It's how it's supposed to be. And when you have majesty and when you have beauty, those are al-jalal wal-jamal. The attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have real tawheed and oneness. Any questions from the crowd? No? Can you open this up for me? Yeah? Last one. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Man, these are so many good questions. I wish we had more time. طيب. Okay. So I'll let you guys choose. There's one on istikhara. No istikhara. There's one on the Battle of Karbala not being documented accurately. Is that one you guys want? Yeah? Okay. طيب صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. طيب, people often ask about historical events and how we know what happened, or when it comes to the Battle of Karbala. Especially Karbala, because Karbala means so much to so many of us. And it's difficult when you keep hearing different stories from the minbar, and then you hear people speaking about it, saying that didn't happen, and then you think, what actually happened? So first of all, you have to understand, the Battle of Karbala happened, for sure. Okay, that's the first thing we document, that Imam Hussein alayhi salam, he was killed with his companions, and they were without water, and this happened for sure. Now, over the centuries, this battle and the tragedy was mourned by different people and different cultures. And you can see it right now, the way that we do latam, it's only been around for maybe 100 years. It was different before that. Every century, the culture changes, a new phenomena is brought forth. This doesn't mean there's a problem in the religion. It's a cultural expression that changes over time. Go to Pakistan, you see latam differently. Go to Africa, they do latam differently, different rhythm. It sounds like music, more music. It's all actually musical, but it sounds a lot more. Even right now with in Iran, you can see it with the beatboxing they do sometimes. Right? You find a different phenomena in mourning. What happened was, as well, there was a different way in which people narrated. It wasn't always narrating history, it was poets that would come up and they would recite poetry. and they would attempt to make people cry for the imam. And when they would do this, sometimes they would bring in stories that didn't actually happen. The same way, different phenomena, different cultural expression. So there are several stories, but you know what? They're limited. So I can tell you them right now, the things that didn't happen. And then that's it. And then you don't have to feel anxious when you're hearing stories from the minbar. So did Abu Fadl Abbas kill 1,000 warriors? No. He didn't kill 1,000. He killed dozens of them. Yeah, and that's still a very difficult thing to do when you're one man. He killed dozens. Okay. Was Qasim trying to get married? No. There's nothing about marriage in any narration. That didn't happen. In the narrations, it wasn't there. Layla, the mother of Ali Akbar, she wasn't there. So when she called back for him to come back, that didn't happen. That was also poetry. Okay, so these are stories that we grew up with, that we feel like, whoa, this is important, but these things, they weren't there. If you want to know what happened, you go to the narrations. And the oldest text we have is called Waqi'atul Taf, that was written and put together in the time of Imam Sajjad alayhi salam. And in that, it details the main events that occurred in Karbala that you already know. And these are all real. The problem is, the person who narrated it, he was a journalist on Yazid's part of the army. You see, just like we have journalists over here, they had journalists in those times. And they would narrate about what's happening in the battles. And these people, they narrated. But then at the same time, you have witnesses. And you have the women of Ahlul Bayt that narrated what happened. That they spoke about what happened afterwards. But mainly, we rely on Waqi'atul Taf. Now, that's why you have differences of opinion about things that happened and didn't happen. There's so much here about things that happened and didn't happen when it comes to history. And by the way, it's not just Karbala, this is all of history. How do you even know about history? History is by going and looking over all the different qara'in, all the different issues that took place around that time and putting it together to create a linear story. That's why you have a disagreement about when was the Prophet's birthday and how old was his wife. Was she 40, was she 25 or 28? And is it on the 12th of Rabi' al-Awwal or the 18th? And what happened in Badr and Uhud and Khandaq? And what happened there and there and there? And it's always conflicting narrations all the time. Because based on the methodology that you use in reading history, you come up with a different story. So you can never say it's 100% this when it comes to history. You can't. And you have to be comfortable with that. That's why when it comes to Sayyidah Zahra alayhi salam, going into her house, they went into the house. In Shi'i traditions, they went into the house. In Sunni traditions, they went outside the house and they were told she's inside, and he said, so what? Alright, then it ends. So they go home. It ends and they go home. They go in the house. Now they say, did he hit her? Did he slap her? Was there a baby? All these disagreements? They went into the house. Do I debate how many arrows hit Abu Abdullah's chest? Or how many swords struck him? Or how many daggers into his neck? He was martyred. It was a tragedy. Regardless of if they cut his finger or didn't cut his finger. You understand? Now the details, they add on imagery and it matters to us. Now these are actually counted. The fact that he cut his finger and the arrows, these are written. And so it is also written what happened in the house. Now it depends on your methodology that you use as a historian, what you take on into your story of history and what you don't. That's why some people, they said, how can Ali accept for this to happen? He would never accept it. He is Asadullah and everything else. But that person has a problem in reading history. Because when you look at the tribes, and you look at who was outside the house, and you look at how it was outnumbered, this has nothing to do with courage. It's nothing to do with courage. And you have a bunch of Romans on the edge of the city waiting for you to fight each other. This has nothing to do with courage. It has everything to do with your reading of sociology and history, your methodology. Likewise, in Karbala it's the same. But the main linear story that you guys know is true. If it changes based on numbers, 72 men or 100 men. My teacher believes there were 96 men that stayed and 4 men that fled. There were 100. And he gives you their names, the ones that fled. And he gives you why they fled and where they came from. For example, you want to get into history, historical data is different. Do you see? But what difference does that make to you right now? It shouldn't make a difference. You should be comfortable with these. You can sit down and read this, read these. You can't see everything as a fact. But you know, the part that matters happened. Abu Fadl Abbas alayhi salam, it happened. And Qasim being martyred happened. Ali Akbar happened. All these things happened. They happened for real. Now, how many they killed, and the wedding, and these things, they're not important in the story of the sacrifice. They are traditions that evolved over time. But they're not important of the story of the sacrifice. If you'd like to know more, there's a series of lectures written now in English by Shahid Mutahari on alislam.org, and you can see them. And he gives, I think there are 4 sessions where he speaks about the different traditions that evolved over time that weren't true, but that don't affect the story at all, and shouldn't affect your belief and your aqidah. These are all real situations. It's a real event that took place. But just like every other historic event that you know, even, not only in the Muslim world, but outside of that, it's based on methodology. And that's why you have conflicting traditions. That's why you have a Shia scholar that said something happened in history, another Shia scholar that says, no, it didn't happen. 2 historians that will say something different because of a different methodology. They're relying on different narrations. Why did you rely on this one? Why did you rely on that one? You have to see their reason behind it. And then you can see, you can discuss, sit down, study, and you can see which one you lean towards. Right? This is not like fiqh. You can see what they were relying upon. If it takes a couple of years of study only for you to understand the methodology of being a historian. You know, so I would say that this is an important topic to open up, but it shouldn't affect anyone's belief, and we should be more comfortable with the fact that history is this way, with everything. As for Karbala, everything that matters, that we know about, happened for real. And the first text was written right afterwards, in the time of Imam Sajjad alayhi salam. والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. Thank you guys for having me with you, and inshallah I'll see you all tomorrow. Sallallahu alaihi wa sallam.